Hey everyone, it's Brave here again. I just want to talk about forgiving ourselves for the things we've done or haven't done in regards to people we've loved, and whether they've passed away or whether we lost them through having to break up from a relationship that was toxic or abusive. But because we loved them, there were moments where we felt guilt and remorse, wondering if we could have changed the person, the abuser, made them more kinder to us if we had just reacted differently to their abuse. But at the end of the day, there's no excuse for their abuse. Even if they were abused, even if they have personality disorders, at the end of the day, sometimes you have no choice but to break your own heart and step away and refuse to be the victim of their abuse anymore. And it's painful because, we sometimes wish we could go back in time and save those, people from themselves. Even though we were the victim of them, they were cruel to us, they were mean to us, they abused us, they didn't appreciate us, they took us for granted, whether we were their, you know, intimate partner or family or friend or whoever it was who you're very close to. And sometimes especially when they've passed away, that guilt, remorse and confusion, it can get worse because obviously there's no opportunity to talk to them anymore. Even if there's been a long period of silence or no contact, you may have had hope that one day we're going to reconcile and everything will be fine and the slate will be wiped clean. And I find that was something that happened in my life, where there was, certain people who had mistreated me very badly, family members. And, when they passed away, I was I felt guilty and but also angry, like, oh, now I don't have the opportunity to confront them and say your abuse was wrong. Why did you treat me this way? But then at the same time, I also felt sad because, the relative who I loved, even though they abused me, is now gone. And but even though I know for a fact that I will see them on the other side in the spirit world, but because we left things at a bad standstill, we weren't on good terms because of what they'd done. And it's correct for the victims to stand up for themselves, and make the abuser acknowledge that they've done wrong. And not that an apology can take anything away 100%, but it would be nice to get an acknowledgement of the guilt, or the bad actions they've done. But sometimes there's certain things an apology can't fix. But it's like, it's very hard because there's moments where your guilt and remorse isn't really necessary, but you can't help but feel it. So really, why should you feel remorse? They should feel remorse for treating you so badly. They should feel bad and want to reconcile. I mean, some people might say guilt, remorse, regret are all the same thing, or a few, two sides of the same coin. But we shouldn't get stuck in guilt mode, basically, is what I'm thinking. When I think about any time I felt guilty, that I reacted aggressively back to my abusers, I've looked into that, and psychological, if you think about the psychology of a victim, some people will become very timid and scared, but some people will just suddenly explode and just roar back at the people who have been abusing them. You've been letting them get away with it for so many years because you love them, their family or whatever, and you felt like guilty if you hit them back, or that you would be seen as evil if you retaliated. But then it's like one day you just explode because you can't take it anymore, the verbal abuse, the violent abuse, whatever kind of abuse it was. And so when that happens, they call it reactive abuse, because you didn't plan to abuse them. This was just, whether it happens immediately after an episode of abuse, that you have reactive abuse, you retaliate in kind, with the equal measure to, match what they've been putting towards you. You react with the same aggression, or it might be many many years later you suddenly react abusively, but then you feel guilty as the because you're not a bad person and you're not an abuser. So that's the sad thing, that the victims will feel regret and remorse for reacting to reacting negatively to abuse, which is a negative thing. But because it's abuse coming from a loved one, or a husband, or a boyfriend, or a friend, or people who you consider significant and close to you, and then that's where, like I said, you could get stuck in guilt mode, because you keep thinking, maybe things could have been different, maybe if I didn't react so aggressively, or maybe if we had a chance to be in front of each other again, we'd both react differently to the same situation. But that's not always possible to go back into these situations with the same people and get a different result. Sometimes you keep trying and trying, and history repeats and repeats and repeats negatively, and then you feel stupid for trying to give chances to people who already showed you who they are, what they're capable of, what they're willing to keep doing to you for whatever reason, whether they're sadistic and cruel and they enjoy your pain, whether they've got personality disorders like narcissistic personality disorder, even if they're just like reacting from their own pain and hurt. I mean, they can't keep doing this. They have to get help, whether it's psychological help from a psychiatrist or a counselor. They have to be willing to say, I recognize my behavior is not acceptable. It's damaging to the people I love and care about. And if they are able to get some kind of therapy or help, or even just sitting down with their family or their partners, whoever they have, shown abuse to, and actually genuinely being sorry, hearing out the victim, even when they hear stuff they don't want to hear, even when they're told how bad their behavior has been. They should be able to, if they're not willing to sit there and say, yes, you're right, I was wrong, I shouldn't have done that. It was, even if they, it's not an excuse, but say if they had substance abuse or alcohol abuse, they need to be able to sit in that, and talk about it, whether they feel ashamed, embarrassed, upset that, they weren't strong enough to get off the substance. I mean, you really just have to be willing. If you haven't got a personality disorder or a mental issue or a psychological issue holding you back, if it's really just you were lashing out because you were so badly treated and it messed you up, you have to be able to consider, if you understand what suffering is, why would you inflict that suffering on someone else, especially your kids, your relatives, your loved ones, your partner, wife, husband, girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever it is, friends, if your friends are your family, because you don't have a lot of family. You don't have to be blood to be considered family. Some people don't have a lot of blood relatives, or they're so badly treated by their blood relatives that their friends are their family, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, it's like you have to be able to treat each other better. It doesn't matter if you're just friends or family or partners. Like, the problem is when people are not willing to get help or change. They see you as the problem. When you complain about their abuse, you're the problem. And a lot of that stubbornness is usually coming from them having a more severe they have a more severe problem. It's not just a bad attitude or reactive abuse from their trauma. It could be bipolar disorder, it could be narcissistic personality disorder, it could be borderline disorder, it could be, you know, even some people with CPTSD can have reactive abuse, and because of their trauma. So there are so many things to consider. But the troubling thing is that certain things like bipolar and narcissistic personality disorder, they're going to be trickier to, deal with, because there isn't a way to take that condition out of a person. So once the damage has been done, they've been abused as a child, or they've suffered severe trauma even as a grown up or a young adult, and once that damage is done, it's really, really hard to reverse. So most narcissists who get therapy will become self-aware and be able to perhaps think about, is this action going to cause pain and harm? It's more like making them think before they act on the compulsion. They're always going to have the compulsion to say something crazy, do something cruel, do something mean. But it's like the therapy, they'd have to do it continuously. It would have to be something they are willing to continuously work at. And that's what's really, really painful. If anyone has ever been with a narcissist as a husband or wife or girlfriend or boyfriend, friend, sister, mother, brother, whatever, you'll understand why I'm saying this, that they can't be cured. They can become self-aware and perhaps reduce their need to be cruel or need to be nasty, but it's very, very hard. And people do say, go no contact, don't talk to them again. But for some people, it might be impossible. It might be that your kid's father, is a narcissist, and you want your children to have a relationship with them, but you're also nervous because the father might be cruel to the kids to get to you and make the kids feel like crap to hurt you, because you'll see the pain in your kid's face and you will feel bad, and they know that. So yeah, it's very, very complicated when people have certain conditions. And like I said, it's when you have like involuntary guilt. And what I mean by that is that you're not making yourself feel guilty, but the guilt washes over you. You feel as if you are to blame because you couldn't save them. There's sometimes that feeling of, like, when people talk about survivor's guilt, for instance, and you were all on an airplane and sadly the rest of the people died, or your friend group or family group on the plane died, and you happen to survive, and then you feel survivor's guilt even though you couldn't have possibly saved them. It wasn't your fault that the plane crashed. You don't know how to feel. You feel sort of just, without even trying, you feel guilty. Obviously you're grieving, you've lost people, it's a shock, it's a terrible trauma. But it's like, yeah, there's certain things, like certain emotions that can just come over you and you can't even control them, and they don't even really belong to you. The guilt should not be there, but for some weird reason this human brain will bring things up and force it in your face, and you have to try so hard to work through these things. This is why it's so important to be mentally strong and be able to analyze yourself, self-analyze yourself, look at your behaviors and ask yourself questions. Why am I reacting this way? What is it in my life or childhood or personality that is making me react this way, or allowing me to feel guilt that doesn't belong to me? You blame yourself for something that you couldn't have possibly have stopped. There's certain events that could happen in your life and you think, well, if only I had stopped her going to the car that day, or if only I'd stopped her marrying that guy, or if only I'd stopped him, going on holiday with that person who ended up hurting them. There's so many things that are out of our control that we really have to have radical acceptance in certain situations, because when you just allow yourself to be drowned by all your emotions, you won't be able to cope. It will overwhelm you. So when you feel drowned in multiple negative emotions, you need to be able to decipher and sift through what it is that is triggering these emotions. There is a trigger, and you need to find what it is and decipher, how can I, you know, change this trigger, stop this trigger. Because most people, when they feel guilty about something, it's usually because they cared about a person. They, you know, you don't usually feel guilty when it's like incidents or situations where you don't have emotional connections to people. If someone on the street, you know, threw a drink in your face and you threw one back, you wouldn't feel guilty about that. You know, because you don't know them and you got them back for being an arsehole or whatever. But say if like you were arguing with your husband and you threw a drink in his face and he threw a drink in your face, you would both, you know, because you care about each other, even though you were angry, you'd feel embarrassed, you'd feel sad, you'd feel like I was out of line. You know, if you really did have love for each other, when you calm down, you'd be like, I can't believe I disrespected, you know, my partner that way, or I crossed the line, you know, I embarrassed them, you know. But yeah, so when it comes to those overwhelming feelings of, you know, guilt, remorse, um, that wishful thinking of should've, woulda, coulda, as people say, you know, I should have done this, I could have done this, I could have done more, why didn't I say more? I had a feeling this was going to happen. I knew that this person was evil. Why didn't I warn them? You know, maybe if I'd warned them, you know. But the thing that you have to realize is, what if you had warned them and it still happened? You know what I mean? What if you had, you know, given them every bit of evidence to say, this is going to end badly, please don't go ahead with this, whatever this or that is. You know, there's certain things that are out of our control. You know, if you think about destiny, when people talk about fate and destiny, if there is an event that is going to take place, no matter how traumatic, no matter how awful, no matter how much evil's involved, if these things are going to take place, there is nothing you could have ever done. And the blame is not with you, the guilt does not lie with you. Of course, you're going to regret the fact that your loved one or your friend or whoever it is, you know, going to be hurt or has passed away because of some terrible event. Of course you're going to feel that. There is no way anyone in their right mind would not feel extreme pain and grief and loss. That is totally normal, you know, to react that way. But what you need to work through is forgiving yourself for thinking that you had to save them, when it's a possibility you could never have saved them. If it didn't happen that time, it could have happened another time. If a terrible incident, you managed to save them from this one, another incident could have happened when you were away. I mean, it's so hard to be everywhere for everyone and save the whole world. It's like, I wish I could save the whole world. You know, I wish I was Superwoman and I could fly around saving everyone. And, you know, and mentally, like, as an empath, I feel so overwhelmed most of the time with, you know, feeling the collective despair of the world, watching the news and seeing how much tragedy and evil is still going on, all the hate that keeps just flaring up, that you knew never went away. People always lie and say, yeah, we're not racist, or we're not a racist community, or we're not a racist country. And the second they find, you know, something to spark off their hidden agenda, then suddenly we have race riots where there was no race thing to, there was nothing to do with race going on, but somehow now we have race riots, you know, because they're using innocent victims' stories to fuel people, like give people false information, on Twitter, online, or whatever, and then everyone's, feeding into it instead of saying, hold on a minute, the family of the victims are not wanting this. They don't give you permission to use their victim's tragedy to rile up hate against anyone. Who said that was okay? And it's really sad, like, and I'm not laughing, like when I make that laughing sound, it's more me in disbelief, like, oh my god, can you believe this crap? I can't believe it. Yeah, so, but when you think, that you can save everyone all the time, your family, take for instance, if someone in your family was a drug addict and you kept trying and trying and saying, I need you to stop taking drugs, please, and you literally lock them in a room to try and make them go cold turkey, and they manage to escape the room, and the first thing they do is find the drug dealer and accidental overdose on whatever they were taking. Now you're going to feel guilt because you're going to feel like, I didn't do enough. I should have nailed the windows shut. How did they get out of the room? If only I could have kept them in the room and forced them to go cold turkey, maybe they would have got clean. Maybe they would still be here right now. Okay, so, but even if you got them to wean off it for a week or two, there's no guarantee that as soon as they left that house, that they wouldn't have gone and ended up in the same situation. It's so difficult, because I can understand completely why people would say it's my fault, because you want to save the people you love. But you have to understand they are a separate entity from you. They can go anywhere, anytime, make bad decisions and put themselves in danger, whether you want them to or not. And of course you wish you could have convinced them that this is dangerous, you shouldn't be with this person, they're going to hurt you, or don't take the drugs anymore, it's going to kill you. Like, of course it's natural to blame yourself and think that I could have done more, but you have to understand that the reality is it could have happened anytime, anywhere. We just don't have control over that. If they had, say if there was a relationship, your sister's with a abusive man who's really beating her up, and then you get her away from him, but then the next person could be the one who hurts her, or she could get in a car and end up in a car wreck, or she could go on holiday and something happens on the holiday. You know what I mean? It's like, obviously the circumstances are going to affect you individually in different ways, because obviously it's different if someone fell off their motorbike on holiday and just had a freak accident, and that's different compared to if someone physically took the life of your sister, if your sister's husband took her life, then obviously that is more traumatic, because you are angry that your relatives suffered, you're angry that they didn't come to you for help. There's so many things that go through your mind that it's like more devastating because of the way they were taken. It's like bad enough their life is lost, but it's the way it was taken adds to the trauma, adds to the pain, adds to your guilt, even though you're not responsible. But sadly, your brain, your human psychology, psychologically, your brain is going to say, I could have done more, it's my fault, when it's not your fault. And I know it's easier said than done to forgive yourself, but sometimes that is what we have to do. We have to be willing to forgive ourselves, even when our hearts are broken. It's sometimes it's hard to forgive others, because I find it so hard to forgive people who have wronged me, but sometimes people find it hard to forgive themselves. I know there's a couple of incidents I knew of where a mother was told by her daughter that she was being abused by a family friend, and because they were so close to this family friend, they never wanted to believe the child. And then years later it came out that that person was doing it to multiple people's kids, and then they got locked away. Then that mother felt embarrassed and ashamed and guilty, remorseful, but the daughter couldn't understand why the mother didn't believe her. The daughter couldn't get over the fact that the mother would rather give the abuser, the dangerous predator, the benefit of the doubt, even instead of believing her daughter. Why would you not, if you see it as taking a chance in being wrong, as if to say, oh, but what if I believed my child and she was lying? Well, wouldn't that be the better option, that you believed your child and okay, the lie came out, but you should always stick up for your child and protect your child, you know? So when you think that oh, I'm going to, you know, give the adult the benefit of the doubt because he seems nice, he seems normal, maybe she misunderstood something he said to her or did, you know, I mean, that was really hard for me to understand, how a mother could not be there for a female child, for a male child. But that happens a lot. That happens a lot. I've heard multiple stories and it shocks me. It really scared me to think that, wow, what is it about these mothers? Like, what is it in them that didn't make them have fierce protectiveness over their children? But then some of them, it comes out later that they were abused and they told their parent and they weren't believed. So that's even worse, because then you think, well, hold on a minute. You knew what that felt like. You knew that fear and that terror that the adults you relied on for your safety didn't believe you and allowed you to still be in the space with a predator, abuser for years, preying on you, abusing you, and you did that to your kid? Why would you do that? So it's really hard to understand why people would do such terrible things, repeat such terrible history, and yet they sort of cry, oh, I'm so sorry, I feel guilty, I feel remorseful. Well, what's like, that just seems pointless, that your remorse and regret means nothing 30 years later when the person's been abused for multiple years and they can't get over it. Like, what kind of, so yeah, there's times where people just throw the word out there, oh, I feel guilty, oh, I feel remorseful, but really it's more they're embarrassed that people know their shortcomings, they're embarrassed that people know they're a piece of crap who didn't protect their kid, you know. And you know, because if I had kids, I'd be willing to die to protect those kids. Clearly there's people out there who don't care about their kids. It annoys me that people like that have plenty of kids, but then there's people out here who can't have kids and they would be the good parents, you know. People out here who, yeah, just terrible people, just plopping out tons of kids, and they don't even want them, they don't even care about them, they don't care what happens to them. I mean, oh, this world makes me sick. I hate this world. And I'm not laughing at a situation. Like, every time I laugh, like I said, it's part of the way I speak. It's like I laugh out of just exasperation, out of fed up energy, just like, oh God, it's too much, you know. And it's like my brain tries to lighten the mood in my head, because it's like I'm feeling low energy because I'm talking about such sad situations, you know. So I don't want anyone to think I'm ever laughing about abuse, because I'm not. But my brain makes me chuckle to bring my energy back up when I'm talking about something low. It's like, you know, it's weird, but that's just my personality. I'm not laughing at any abuse. Um, so yeah, it's just very, very painful. I have no, you know, when people say I have no regrets, what a crock of, you know, what a crock. Everyone has regrets. I think people who say they have no regrets have a lot more embarrassing skeletons in their closet, and they don't want to admit they have regrets. So it's like a grandiose defense mechanism to be like, no, I'm great. My life was great. I'm perfect. Even when I made mistakes, I was great. And I'm just like, what do you mean you're great and you had no mistakes and you had no uh regrets, or if you do have mistakes, you're totally fine with them. Why are you fine with them? Why aren't you, you know, not trying to shame people, but yes, you should feel ashamed if you've done something that you should be ashamed of. I mean, it's very strange to me how people can be so blasé about like terrible things they've done. Like I remember talking to some gang members in New Zealand, and even though this man was old, really old, like maybe in his 70s, and the way he would chuckle and talk about terrible things he did when he was like 20, 21, and he was part of these motorcycle gangs, and I would just be like, ugh, how can you chuckle when you're talking about, gang R-ing people and just beating people up with baseball bats, and just like, and I was like, God, it just shows the evil in you never left. It never left. Yet you're sitting with your grandkid on your knee. You don't even deserve a family, as far as I'm concerned. You don't deserve these, innocent kids sitting here. Like, how are they safe? Like, it really disgusted me to think that you should have the biggest, regrets of us all, and yet you're chuckling like, oh yeah, we used to beat up the rival gang. I mean, ugh, just, it really hurts me to see that human beings are just, some of them are trash, you're real trash. They never had any integrity or dignity or honor. They're just straight trash. I just can't even believe it. Like, because where are all the honourable people? Seriously, where are they? Because I know that if I, if someone asked me to describe myself, I know I can say without being big headed, without bragging, I am genuinely brave. I would put my life on the line to protect any innocent soul. I don't care what race you are, I will protect you. I will help the vulnerable. Even when I was at school, even small school like primary school, which is age, what's that, 5 to 11 and a half, I used to help protect kids from bullies. And then at secondary school, which is like high school age, what's that, 12, like 11 and a half or 12, we start at high school in England, and we call it secondary school, and then we leave, do our like final exams, which we call GCSEs, and we do that kind of like 15 and a half, and then 16. So some kids, depending on what month of the year they're born, will be 16 when they leave, and some will be 15 and a half. But you can't start working in England before 16. If you do, it's kind of illegal. So you get a national insurance card, and that's like, I guess it's the equivalent of the American Social Security number. You need that number to work. It's like a ID number, and when you're 16 you can go and work but also study. But yeah, like when I think back to how many oh my gosh, I literally, it fell out my head what I was talking about. I was talking about the schools. Sorry, yeah. I was never a bully. I always stood up for other kids. I always went out of my way to protect other kids I saw being bullied. I remember this poor kid at my primary school. He was a boy, and he was being bullied by this fat, ugly pig of a boy. Such a nutcase. You could tell he had some kind of psychological problem, or like antisocial behavior problem. He was not normal, he was disgusting, and we kept saying, please tell the teacher, please tell your parents, this has to stop, or you have to fight back. Pick up a chair and hit him. Like, you're letting him abuse you every day. It was like horrible to see him, just for the victim to be so weak. And then I remember one day the mother of the bully had to come in to pick something up from the school, and I asked her, excuse me, are you the mother of this boy? And she was like, yes. And I said, your son is evil, he's a bully, he keeps picking on this boy, can you tell him to stop? And I'm only like 10, and I'm telling off this woman, and she was looking at me like, what? My son's not a bully, my son's fine. And I went, no, your son is a bully, we all witness it. I've been trying to tell the teachers to do something. You're the mum. If you raised this monster, you should do something about the monster you raised. And then sadly, nothing was done. I don't know what the mum said to him, but it didn't help. If she even said anything, it didn't help. And then the poor kid was still being bullied. And it was just devastating to me because I genuinely care about other people. And I just hated to see this kid being bullied and picked on for no reason other than the kid picking on him was evil. And I had no idea why the teachers weren't protecting him. I have no idea why he didn't tell his parents. I don't know. It was really sad. And but when I you know, left school at 15 and a half, 16, and I really had hope. I really had the hope that okay, everything's going to be normal now. I'm free from that ridiculous, horrible situation of school. I'm going to go to, our college is like different to the American colleges. So what Americans call college is our equivalent of college is university, where you pay a lot of money to go and get a higher education for certain jobs. But usually, if people just go to a local college, it's what I guess Americans call a community college, where it's lower level qualifications for just basic jobs. And there are some higher educations, but it's not as expensive to pay for to get the qualification. Whereas university, you have to get loans, student loans, you have to be there for years studying. It's usually where like the law school level or the doctor medical school level or engineering, certain things you do, or computing, or certain things you do at university, it's like has to be a higher level and it costs a lot of money and takes people years to pay back the loans for university. But when I was studying, I just remember being so confused by the way that the other teenagers, were just so hell bent on just staying immature, staying, in this unintelligent, antisocial, bullying mindset. Like I thought, oh, we all have to grow up now. We've all left school. We're 16. We're gonna join the community college level, or some people went to sixth form, which was also kind of like community college level, or did A levels or whatever it was. And I really was absolutely gobsmacked to see that no one grew up, that everyone was an idiot still. They were bullies, they were horrible, they were vile. The only thing that increased was the sexual activity, obviously, because now people are more out of their parents' home. They're going to college all day, they're wandering around the town, in groups of people they've met. And so it was like the grossness of just the casual sex and the not using protection and multiple people getting pregnant at 16, 17, 18. I mean, in England, it's embarrassing how there was an epidemic, I remember, of just very, very young girls getting pregnant, and it wasn't rape, and it was literally these young girls, for some weird reason, were overly sexualized and going with other kids, and they were both like 12. Like there was a story that a 12-year-old had a baby and the boy was 12 and she was 12, and it was disgusting and embarrassing, but it was happening a lot. There was a ton of like 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 13-year-olds having babies, and their parents not, keeping them under control. It was like everyone was out of control. It was really embarrassing. And I didn't get pregnant whatsoever, and I didn't choose to have sexual activity until I was sort of 18, and I kind of regretted it because I felt peer pressured into it, because everyone else had been doing it since they were 12 and 13. So then when they're coming across me and I'm saying I want to wait for marriage, they're like, what? Like looking at you like you're a freak or something, when really I wish I'd been strong enough at that time to say, no, you're the freaks for being so over the top, overly sexualized at such a young age. I feel sorry for you. I don't know what happened to you that made you feel like that was something you wanted to do at 12, 13, 14, 15. That's sad that you weren't more protective of yourself, or your parents weren't more protective of you. You know, you didn't have no self-control. Like, what's wrong with you? But like, yeah, so there's there's many things that I remember that just oh yeah, it's just when you think of how people in the world are just so negative, what is the reason? I really have, such a hard time, being in this world, being in this terrible, awful world. When you're an empath and a earth angel or a light worker, and you're pure of heart and you're a good soul, it is so draining, and it makes you have no hope. It's draining being here, it's draining seeing all the hate and the evil and the terrible things that are continuously going on in the world. It is really hard. You just don't want to be here because you think, I don't want to be part of this evil place, but you have to remain strong. I know that there's a purpose for us good people, even us just existing here on this earth plane to counter the evil. That is important in itself. That was made clear to me, that just you being here, existing as a good soul, harming no one, doing good wherever you can, that is important. That brings balance to everything. It counters the evil, it chips away at the evil. So just keep shining your light, just helping those out of darkness, being kind to those who need it. And yeah, it is hard though, because sometimes you're so kind and you help so many people, but when you need help, there's no one there. The same people you helped sometimes won't even be there for you. And that really hurts when you think that you've saved someone from homelessness, you gave them money, you didn't ask for it back, and then you need a tiny favor and they're just too selfish to give it. And then you get shocked and think, wow, I almost wish I didn't help you. And then you feel like you're not able to do your job as a good person, as a light worker, as an earth angel, because now you get resentful in the human body. Your human emotions overtake your spiritual emotions. So we're a spiritual being of pure light and love, and then we get squashed into this meat puppet body, pushed down to earth, to learn these lessons that we've chosen to come here and learn, no matter how brutal. And that is hard for me to understand, that we would choose such a brutal life to learn harsh lessons. But if you listen to my other videos, you will hear more information about that. And but yeah, like being pushed way down to the lowest vibration, and then being stuck here, forgetting, having our memory erased of our true home, the spirit plane, and not being able to remember why we chose this life or what we expected to achieve. Like, for instance, I think that I picked this life because I wanted to learn how to forgive massive betrayal. That's what I think. And the reason I think that is because I have been given so much betrayal from people close to me. It's insane. Like, every single person I got close to stabbed me in the back. My mother is the biggest opposition. I was helping my biggest enemy my whole life, which is my mother. I've been helping her, but because she's a sadistic, malignant narcissist, and she's got narcissistic personality disorder, that meant that she was compulsively trying to hurt me all the time. She was compelled to do this because of her condition. Even if she wanted to love me and care about me, she couldn't, because the condition wouldn't let her. And that was extremely painful. And I didn't want to admit it for many years, that she acts like she hates me. She acts like she's happy when I'm sad. And sad. She's sad when I'm happy. Like, she's acting like she's jealous of me. Like, but I'm always sharing with her. If I get a job, I give her money, without she never had to ask me for anything. I just kept giving and giving and giving and saving her, and she would always look past me and want to be more, loving to other people's kids, or loving to strangers, or super generous and loving to everyone except me. And it was so painful to watch, you know, very, very hard to watch and go through, and, be subjected to that. Because most people, all you want is for your family to love you and welcome you, and you want to know you're always welcome home. But now I know, I'm glad to know this is not our real home, this human experience. We're just a spiritual being having a human experience, and all these things down here don't matter really. Like, when I think about it, I think, that person who was put down here to be my mum, it's not even my real mum. It's just a person. It's almost like the Matrix, you know what I mean? It's like these people are put here as pawns for you to experience this betrayal, I mean, something that's even hard for me to grasp, but I was told this from friends who had a near-death experience and had been told, why we come here to Earth and stuff like that, and why we would pick a life full of suffering, what was the point of it all. And basically, they said that, well, if you pick a life that has severe suffering, you will evolve faster when you complete the tasks. So for instance, like I said, I think I picked, I need to experience severe betrayal in order to learn to forgive my, terrible betrayal. So sadly, I think I'm going to fail this test because I ain't forgiving no one. And yeah, I'm not they can kick rocks and I'll hit them with the rock. But yeah, it's really hard for me to forgive severe betrayal. I'm just like, hell no, why would I? But apparently, that's something I really feel at a soul level I was supposed to try to learn, because the amount of betrayal I've had, it was like it kept repeating so much to give me opportunities to forgive. And I just refused. It's like, no, I will not forgive. And even when I tried to pretend that, oh, okay, I forgive them today. Yeah, I'm going to tell them I forgive them. But then the person sort of laughed at your attempt to forgive them. Like, I don't care if you forgive me, I didn't even do anything wrong. Then you get angry and be like, I rescind the forgiveness, I still hate you, And so for me, yeah, I definitely feel at a soul level I was supposed to learn how to forgive severe betrayal somehow. I mean, I've got to the point where I can have a little bit more compassion. When I say for my abusers or enemy, I don't mean I let them off the hook, but when, in particular, sort of the people in my life who were narcissists, diagnosed narcissists who hurt me severely and betrayed me severely, the only thing I have compassion for in regard to them is the child they were that was abused, that forced them to become a narcissist. So I will have compassion for that little kid that was them, that forced them to become the monster they are now. But I don't have compassion for the monster they are now, no way. But that was something I didn't even consider before, that, well, they were, an abused child as well, and their mind couldn't handle the abuse because it was so bad, and their mind split, and then they became a narcissist, and it wasn't, they didn't want it, it's involuntary, it's, a psychological break in the mind, and they can't, control it. Just like how I have OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, in regards to germs. I hate germs, I'm germophobic, I want things straight and in a certain order. There's almost like a ritual I have to go through of how I want things to be done, how I want to brush my teeth in a certain way, and it doesn't change. I always have to do it in a certain way, have the things laid out a certain way, you know, and if I can't get it that way, it makes me anxious, sort of thing. Now, I can't control that. As much as I want to control that, I cannot control that. So I know what that feels like, to be compelled to do something and not be able to control it, to be aware that I'm being compelled to behave a certain way, but not be able to control it, to dismiss it, to turn it off. So when I looked at it from that point of view, that, oh, okay, imagine if my OCD, my obsessive compulsive disorder, was narcissistic personality disorder, and I see myself going to do something cruel, but I can't stop myself, or there's something inside saying that I have to do this, and then, you know, some sick part of the disorder is giving me a pleasure, you know, feeling from doing this cruel thing, but I can't control it, you know. And so, you know, I have definitely tried my best to you know, look at things differently, and I think I am proud of myself that I was able to come to that, you know, conclusion that I will allow myself to have compassion for the child who was abused. You know, I didn't consider that part of them before. I only could see the monster they'd become, the monster that hurt me, the monster that arred me, the monster that beat me, the monster that laughed at my pain, that got pleasure from seeing the pain in my face, you know. I can push that thing aside, that monster, and remember there was a child that once existed who was severely abused, and that is what caused this monstrous condition to become them, sadly. But it is hard because sometimes you feel like the condition is them and they are the condition, so how can you separate them? But you know, I was able to at least come to that point where I will have compassion for the child they were, that didn't deserve to be abused, just like I didn't deserve to be abused by them, and when I was a kid I didn't deserve it. And I know what it feels like to be that kid, but you know, because I was given immense strength, you know, to get through it, my mind didn't split. My mind was, you know, they couldn't break my spirit that with their abuse. But sadly, not everyone's like me. Not everyone's been given that extra strength. And you know, some people, like I've said in my other videos, you know, some people chose to do, you know, certain tests over multiple lifetimes. So like reincarnation, they chose to come down to earth and have a milder life where there's a little bit of stress, a little bit of problems, but not severe. Like, but then that would take them multiple lifetimes to keep coming back and learning, go back to the spirit world, come back and learn, you know. But then some people who have the more stronger spirit, the braver spirit, would say, I can handle this. Yes, I will take this mission, you know, and this will evolve me faster. I want to learn this faster. This is something I need to overcome. So, you know, the inability to forgive, I guess, is something that I definitely recognize, especially when I've seen past lives. I've seen 3 past lives. When one time a lady did a hypnosis regression, and that was really interesting because she did, you know, write down some things before I got there. So I think she had a bit of a psychic gift. Then she did the regression, and I told her what I saw, and it all made sense to me, and I think I'll talk about those past lives in a different video, actually describe what I saw and everything. But the fact that, you know, she opened the envelope after and said, read that, and then she'd written down stuff I was saying before I even got there. So it was really fascinating. And also, I regressed myself. I literally used a YouTube meditation thing where it was a past life meditation thing where you listen to the guided instructions, and I was able to connect with 2 more past lives using that, and that was really fascinating. And I saw people who were with me in this life, And it made sense why, oh, that's why, we couldn't work things out, or that's why I had this feeling towards them when I met them, and I didn't know them, but it felt like I knew them my whole life, or it felt like we were close and we had like a telepathy, we knew what each other was thinking. We could just look at each other in the eye, and it was like I knew what they were talking with their eyes, the language of the eyes, or the telepathy was just there. You could almost hear their thoughts, or they could project, their thought to you. And so yeah, it's definitely something I noticed in the past lives that I didn't want to forgive. I blamed people. I forced them to feel guilty because I blamed them for their inability to do certain things, to maybe they weren't there for me, and I held that grudge, sort of, even though when you go to the spirit world after you die here, and then your spirit goes straight back to your true home. But it was almost like my spirit self was aware that, wow, the feeling that the human I was in had, of the grudge and the hate and the inability to forgive. I want to go back and not cure that, what's the best term to say, what I want to go back and learn that lesson, to be able to let go, to have radical acceptance, to forgive, to understand that not everything was how it seemed. Maybe not everything was that person's fault. Maybe it was just the circumstances, just placed everyone in those positions. And obviously, yes, if we do choose our life, then yes, those people were there to play their part. They could not avoid playing their part, and that is a thing that I really do find fascinating. Sometimes I find it hard to understand that, wow, we choose people we knew in the spirit world to come down here with us, like our soul group, and they will agree to be our enemies down here just so that we can learn the lesson. So they will agree to be, okay, I'll be the husband who hurt you, betrayed you. I'll be this abuser who attacked you in the street, or I'll be, this person who robbed you and stabbed you, or, it sounds crazy, and I still have trouble getting my head around it, even though I know it's all true. It's still hard for me to grasp. It's like, whoa, this is mental. Like, I don't, no disrespect, to the other side, but it just, in my human mind, I'm like, what is all this? Why are we doing this? Why are we just going through all this pain? Why can't it be easier? Surely we can learn things without having to go through such brutality, but apparently not. Apparently it has to be brutal if you want to learn quickly, and I don't know, it's very, very hard. But yes, I'm gonna say good night to everyone now. It's very late in the early hours of the morning here in London, and I'm really, really tired. My eyes are falling down, like my eyelids are falling down. So I just want to say God bless you, everyone. Thank you for listening to my video. If you got anything useful or positive from my videos, or if it made you think, or if it brightened your day, just do me a favor and click the like button and share and subscribe. And I wish everyone love, peace, and protection. I hope that, everyone who's going through something will have the strength to keep going. Pray for strength, ask for strength, ask God and his good archangels to watch over you, to intervene in your life, to help you, because I mean, apparently, like, because I've been told that, they can't intervene because we have free will. You have to ask. You have to specifically ask in your prayers, I need you to intervene. I want you to intervene. I'm asking you to help me and intervene, So, yeah, so make sure, you're saying God's good archangels. You're not just asking anything out there. You make it clear you are asking only the ones of light and good and positive things. You don't just be willy-nilly calling in things because there are bad things out there that can pose as good. So, you know, be spiritually aware, keep your energy safe, you know, don't ever use, you know, dark magic or Ouija boards or nothing like that. Those things are bad and open portals that let bad things in. So you got to be super, super careful about what you do, you know, in regards to like the spirit realm. So yeah, just always focus on the light and the good. And but that's all for now. I'm so tired. My voice is so low energy now, sorry. But yes, so thank you everyone, and that's it for now. Take care. Thanks. Bye for now. Bye.